The economy is falling off a cliff and the U.S. consumer is starting to freak out. The fluff savings accounts and cheap credit that helped keep American spending at the highest rate since 2020 are disappearing. Let's dive in. The Wall Street Journal reports the engine of the U.S. economy, consumer spendings, is starting to sputter. Retail purchases have fallen in 3 of the past 4 months. Spending on services including rent, haircuts, and bulk bills was flat in December after adjusting for inflation, the worst monthly reading in nearly a year. Sales of existing homes in the U.S. fell last year to their lowest level since 2014 as mortgage rates rose. The auto industry posted its worst sales year in more than a decade. It's a stark turnaround from the second half of 2020 when Americans lifted the economy out of a pandemic downturn, helping the U.S. avoid what many economists worried would be a prolonged slump. Consumers snapped up exercise bikes, televisions, and laptop computers for school children during lockdowns. When restrictions were lifted, they rushed back to their favorite restaurants and travel destinations. And they kept spending, helped by government stimulus, flush savings accounts, and cheap credit, even as inflation picked up. Faced with 4-decade high inflation last year, Americans outspent it. Through most of 2022, consumer spending growth exceeded price increases by about 2 percentage points. Now, the forces that helped keep spending high and are unwinding while inflation remains elevated. The share of monthly income Americans set aside for savings was 3.4% in December, down from 7.5% a year earlier and from a record high in April 2020. Credit card interest rates have been rising, and Federal Reserve officials have signaled that they plan an additional quarter percentage point increase to the central bank's benchmark rate this week. That would bring the rate to between 4.5 and 4.7%. 4.5 to 4.75% from near zero at the start of last year. The slowdown. Consumer spending surged after COVID lockdowns eased, but has fallen in recent months in the face of high inflation, while savings have dropped from the pandemic highs. This is the share of U.S. Adults whose monthly expenses were more than their income by household income. As you can see, not good. Under 50,000, 7.2%. 50,000 to 100,000, 2.6%. And then 100,000 or more, 1.5%. That's kind of crazy. Let's continue. Annual inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, remained above 5% in December for the 19th straight month, the longest such streak since the early 1980s. Wow. Consumer spending accounts for roughly 70% of the economy. A downshifting consumer is a key reason that business and academic economists polled by the Wall Street Journal on average put the probability of a recession in the next 12 months at 61%. However, many economists say the U.S. might avoid a recession entirely if spending patterns stabilize. One factor making forecasting more difficult, while unemployment is trending at half a century low, big companies including Amazon Inc., Goldman Sachs Group Inc., and Microsoft Corp have begun to cut jobs. The last bastion of strength is the labor market, but I don't think it can withstand all of these other forces, said Nationwide chief economist Kathy Bostanek. That's a hard one. Recent layoffs trends worry Busherman DeLong, a 30-year-old consumer account manager at an industrial manufacturer in southern Minnesota. His savings rose to $3,700 during the pandemic, thanks in part to government stimulus. He is now down to about 3 cents. Wow. Mr. DeLong said he had to dip into his savings to cover the rising costs of his groceries, utilities, and car insurance. He has found some relief in his grocery bill since he and his partner decided last year to purchase some pigs jointly with other families to be raised on a relative's farm. Their portion of meat yielded nearly 150 pounds, saving them about 500 on groceries, Mr. DeLong estimated. The possibility of layoffs, he said, is part of the crunch that I'm having to consider now. What's going to happen if I no longer have an income? So far, jobs have remained plentiful and wages continue to rise in the face of Federal Reserve tightening. Unemployment was a low 3.5% in December. Hourly wages were up a robust 4.6% year over year. There were about 10.5 million unfilled jobs available in November, according to the Labor Department, a sign that demand for labor remained strong. Households had a ton of comfort they don't normally have about their job prospects, said Marianne Wanamaker, an economist at the University of Tennessee. They knew they could get a job tomorrow if they wanted to, and that remains mostly true. Still, there are signs of labor market weakness. Employees are shedding temporary workers at a fast rate, and people who lose their jobs are taking longer to find new ones. Meanwhile, the number of hours worked a week has declined for 2 straight months, according to the Labor Department, resulting in a slowdown in workers' take-home pay. Mikhail Anderson, owner of First Class Tattoo in New York City, has seen signs of weakening demand after it was cleared to reopen from lockdown in summer of 2020. His business was slammed by consumers flush with unemployment and insurance payments and stimulus checks. In mid-November of last year, Mr. Anderson started getting calls from clients who had booked day-long tattoo sessions saying they could only afford shorter ones or pulling out altogether. Mr. Anderson, who specializes in tattoo projects that often take 5 or 6 all-day sessions to complete, had 15 cancellations for full-day slots in December. Wow. In my 15 years of doing this, I've never seen that. People calling up and saying they don't have the money to spend right now or can only afford an hour because their current situation is pretty bad, he said. For now, First Class Tattoo isn't likely to slash prices because the baseline level on demand remains strong. Some 250 clients are still on the waiting list. Well, he's doing well at least. Also weighing on many consumers, the rapid increase in rates in the past year, tied to the Fed tightening, has pushed the cost of all types of debt higher. Mortgage rates reached a 20-year high last fall. Some 57% of consumers were concerned about making housing payments in the fourth quarter, according to a survey by Freddie Mac, up from 48% in the third quarter. Wow. The increases are gradually starting to slow down consumer spending, though it might take a while before the effect is fully realized. We're probably going to have higher interest rates around for quite a while. You would think eventually that would dampen consumption, although that we haven't had a full effect yet, said Harvard University economist Kenneth Rogoff. Credit card balances were up 15% on the year in the third quarter, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the largest increase in more than 2 decades. Wow. Additionally, tens of millions of Americans are set to start or resume making payments on student loans later this year after the Supreme Court rules on President Biden's student debt cancellation plan. Payments have been frozen since March 2020 and are scheduled to begin again 60 days after litigation is resolved or the program is implemented. Many taxpayers will get smaller refunds when they file their returns in the coming months because Congress didn't extend the brakes put in place at the height of the pandemic. Most Americans who lose their jobs can expect unemployment payments for 6 months or less at a fraction of their former paychecks, the same as before pandemic programs kicked in. Pandemic programs allowed Americans to receive unemployment payments for as long as 18 months, in some cases, paid workers more than their paychecks. The previously generous jobless benefits and direct federal payments to households caused the share of income Americans save every month to hit a new highs in 2020. Since then, the savings rate has fallen to roughly 3% of monthly income from more than 30% at the start of the lockdowns. In 2019, the year before the pandemic, the rate was 8%, 8.8%. Wow, now it's down to 3. Wow. Not good out there, folks. Definitely not. The large stock market declines over the past year also alarmed consumers, including Scottsdale, Arizona-based Sarah Layer, who is 57 years old. Ms. Layer said the declines depleted the holdings of her 401k and IRA accounts by nearly 40%. Over the past year, her family has had a dip into their savings to pay for essential car and plumbing repairs. They are putting off other expenses like buying a new car and have given up ordering in meals. She's trying to spend more cautiously, shunning recipes involving pricey eggs and buying more canned food. Everything I do just feels like I am a lot poorer. Can I do this or can I do that, she said. U.S. factories, shippers, and importers are pulling back, a sign they anticipate less demand from Americans in the months ahead. Inbound volumes at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach in California were down 20.1% in December from a year earlier and have been behind 2019 levels since August. A little over a year ago, backlogs at ports were drawing President Biden's attention. Nicholas Hobbs, Chief Operating Officer of J.B. Hunt Transport Services, Inc., which manages truck and rail shipments, said the company has never seen demand fall off for big and bulky products, including appliances, furniture, and exercise equipment. Although off-price retailers with discount inventory are shipping more. Jacqueline Milbury, 33, has been looking for big ways to make cuts. One day last fall, her banking app informed her that the cost of 1 month's groceries and household goods for her family of 4 had risen to $900 from about $600 or $700. I find myself now going to 3 or 4 different grocery stores just to get the best deals on things to save on costs, said Miss Milbury, a health insurance claims analyst in Perkington, Ohio. On one recent outing, she stopped at Kroger for eggs and meat, Aldi for produce, Sam's Club for her children's snacks, and Target for toilet paper. Even as she has cut back on groceries, restaurants, hairstyling, and facials, her credit card balances have grown in the past several months. She said she started making only the minimum required payments on her credit cards. Yeah, not good. Yeah, the economy is definitely like falling off a cliff, and where this gets is going to keep getting worse. As those economists said earlier in the article, they expected to, what is it, a 61% chance of a recession in the next year? Yeah, so not good. If you have a job, keep it. I was reading yesterday that Google employees are trying to unionize. Like, I gotcha, but probably not the best time to be doing it considering all the layoffs. But what do you think? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think the economy is going to pick back up with more rates? Do you think the consumer spending is going to outdo a recession like some of the economists think, like they mentioned in this article? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel for daily news updates, hit that notification bell, and share this video to help spread the news. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.